And welcome, folks, to a special edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insiders. Like, wow, you guys went from every other week to every other hour? That's right. That is right. Back with a special edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider, brought to you by our sponsors. First, our long-standing sponsor, Wolverine. Wolverine Boots, our blue-collar sponsor. When it comes to blue-collar apparel, when it comes to apparel that represents what we're about, what Michigan is about, blue-collar work ethic. That is what Wolverine is about. That is what Michigan student athletes are about, which is why Wolverine has come to support Michigan athletics, and Michigan student athletes and their NIL pursuits. And through their Wolverine blue collar crew, and you have seen them in their blue collar crew apparel and several of their maize and blue collar apparel line. Some of their pieces, one of which that you see me wearing right now, this Glacier heavyweight long sleeve flannel shirt. This is one of a series that you can find over on the Wolverine.com site. You can go over there right now and see at Wolverine.com/US and see the line of special Wolverine gear that you can shop for the holiday season and get your favorite Michigan fan the gear that they want to wear to represent what Michigan is about, what they're about, what you're about, and what Wolverine apparel is about. That is blue collar work ethic. And right now, you can get 15% off your first order if you go to wolverine.com/US right now. That's wolverine.com/US. Get 15% off your first offer. You see it right there, bottom part of your screen. A great line of apparel from Wolverine, our great sponsor here on the Michigan Recruiting Insider. And our other sponsor, new to the Recruiting Insider, passes.com, the new NIL partner, official NIL partner of Michigan Athletics, as you heard, exclusively on the Michigan Insider Morning Show. They signed a 7-year deal with 7 figures up front to bring content creation to Michigan Athletics for Michigan student athletes to be able to represent their brands in an online platform and be able to leverage the Michigan brand in a way that they weren't able to do before, and in a way that no other student athletes across the athletic landscape are able to do. From day one, student athletes at the University of Michigan, whether it be a football athlete or a gymnast, they can go to Passes, their advertising partners, and in their Michigan uniforms and say, hey, you want to represent the brand in your Michigan uniform in an advertising way, you can do it right now via Passes. And you Michigan fans can support student athletes through your Passes membership. You can find out more at passes.com. With that, fellas, let's go ahead and get started with this special edition of the Recruiting Insider. And we are talking about the commitment, Bryce and Steve, of one Mr. Elijah Dotson. We've been talking about this flip. We all have crystal balls in. We've had it in for quite some time. This is a flip from Pitt to Michigan for the Belleville dual athlete. He's a multi-positional athlete. He is a safety. He is a nickel. He is a corner. He is a receiver. He is a jack of all trades. He is a guy who I think the sky is the limit for, Steve. I've been calling him a program take for quite some time. I think that's exactly what he is for the University of Michigan.
Kind of ironic on the board today that Alejandro brought up Michigan's discussion on Mason Curtis, who 4-star, who I don't think anybody knew what position he was going to play coming into Michigan, but is a guy who has looked immediately like he belongs as a 4-star freshman athlete. With Dotson, I think it's a similar situation for Michigan where we've said it before, just get on campus and we'll go from there with it, right? I mean, could be receiver, like you said, Sam, could be safety, could be corner, could be nickel. With Michigan, it's just like, just get up to campus and we'll figure it out later. The optics, obviously, also, I think, if you're a Michigan fan, you're starting to wonder more about the chances to obviously flip Bryce Underwood too. I think Bryce is the guy that got Dotson the offer to LSU in the first place. You guys remember LSU offered there kind of randomly a couple months ago. It was kind of out of nowhere. But yeah, this is a guy I think we've been kind of all sort of banging the drum for a while, Underwood or not, as an in-state guy that really could make a difference for Michigan at a few different spots.
And Steve, Bryce, man, this is a favorite of ours. We've been watching him for years now, going back to his time at U of D. This was a guy that Steve Klinkscale identified early. Seemed like this was a dude that was going to wind up at Michigan. Then with the coaching change, kind of fell off the radar. But they came back around, and it wound up working out in the end. This is a high upside guy for Michigan. And frankly, I just think I think he's a better athlete than some of the guys rated higher than him on the board.
Yeah, and I think Alan would agree with you. I know at one point he was, I think, a 3-star for us, and now he's close to the top 100 in the rankings on 24/7 Sports. He's a composite 4-star, and there's a lot to like about him. You mentioned Steve Klinkscale, the former secondaries coach, and when I went to see Elijah Dotson earlier this season, he admitted to me that Michigan was far and away his number one with the old coaching staff. The new coaching staff came in, contact kind of dropped off. He wasn't sure where things stood. Enters kind of Pitt, who had been recruiting him. Archie Collins had done a fabulous job. And so he decided to come in there. Michigan kind of turns up the heat later on in the process. Lamar Morgan has done a really good job with him and his family. Dotson has been up to campus several times this season. And I think in the end, this is where he wanted to be. He wanted to stay closer to home. And it's just a match made in heaven. I'm a huge fan of his game. I mean, we've said this before. I could even see him play wide receiver at Michigan. I think he's that talented. Obviously, with the wideout class they're kind of building at Michigan, I don't know if that's the case. But again, Steve mentioned it. This does help with Bryce Underwood, who has thrown the ball to Dotson quite a bit this season as a senior. So a lot to like about him. And the thing is, I think he's probably going to start out at safety, but I think he could be a bigger corner. And the thing that really intrigues me about him is he originally was offense all the way until Reggie Wins, our guy Sam, said, I think you should try the defensive side of the ball. And one of his rising stars, Camp, he was feeling it out, kind of trying to see how he liked it. He balled out in front of us. He was easily one of the top performers at the camp, at a position he had never really played. And I think the calling card for me is I always look at, different schools recruiting a guy. And Iowa was heavily on Dotson. Phil Parker really, really, really liked Dotson. He thought he was a standout in the defensive back area. And so there's a lot to like about him. It's a great fit. And overall, this is only going to bolster that defensive, recruiting class in general.
Yeah, man. I just, there's something about Detroit DBs. They just grow them, man. They just grow them. And I just had this fear that this was going to be one of those guys that they wound up regretting not taking. I'm not saying that he was going to be Sauce, but they passed on Sauce Gardner. They passed on Avonte Maddox. They passed on Desmond King. They regretted not taking those guys, man. They regretted not taking every single one of them. Every single one of them. Now, Kalen King, they tried to get Kalen King. They didn't pass on Kalen King. They just missed on Kalen King. That's different. But the first three, they just passed on. And this was dangerous because the next crew after Clink, there was a little sort of reluctance to kind of go on Elijah. It was kind of slow. They were kind of slow to go. And then they picked up steam. Kind of realizing as the board kind of widened and you kind of realize, wait a minute, this dude is good enough to help us in a lot of positions. Let's not get so caught up in numbers at a given spot because they were kind of full at some positions. And so you get it. And you had made some promises to guys at some spots. So you don't want to go back on your word on guys that you said certain things to at certain spots. And that you got to be true to your word. But you can be true to your word and still have program takes. Guys that can help you maybe he can help you at nickel, or he can help you at corner, or you can help you at receiver. Passing on dudes at the crib comes back to bite you. Desmond King comes back to you had to play against him. You got to play against him. And then you got to see Sauce Gardner go be an all-pro first-round pick. Oh, man, no. You know who this dude, Elijah Dotson, and the first time we saw him play, and you mentioned it, watching him at Reg, my baby, he was playing receiver. You know who he reminds me of in that way, and he still registers with me on Twitter. It's crazy to remember these guys as young dudes. I was just watching an old video on my YouTube channel of a young Aleem McNeil when I went to watch him in high school, watching a young Aleem McNeil playing fullback and linebacker and defensive end and all these different positions, and just young baby face Aleem McNeil, right? Seeing him. But another guy in that same age group playing a different position, playing receiver, still follow him on Twitter to this day, Kirby Joseph. And Kirby Joseph was a receiver that Ryan Walters took, flipped him to DB, and his arc, he just kept developing. High upside guy, right? And when Brad Holmes took him, what was he, second or third round? I can't remember if he was second or third round. Might have been a third round guy. But a high upside dude who you felt like was just going to keep getting better as he kept developing at the position, as he kept getting bigger physically, kept growing into his body and kept learning the position. Because he wasn't always a DB, so he kept having to learn the tricks of the trade. But as he grew physically and as he matured in the position, you just felt like, man, this dude is just going to keep getting better. He's going to keep. And now, what is Kirby Joseph? He's leading the league in interceptions. Like this, I'm telling you, Elijah Dotson is a better athlete. Now, so this is going to sound like sour. This is not sour grapes. I am not downing this guy. We were saying this beforehand. This dude is a really good football player, okay? When I say this, Ivan Taylor is a really good football player. I'm not sour grape. I am not downing him as a football player. Terrific football, high IQ player. Ike Taylor, his dad, was a terrific football player. I think that's one of the reasons why Ivan Taylor is so much better than a lot of guys, a lot of high school players right now, is because his IQ. Like, he thinks the game a lot better, and he's a good athlete too. But I think he thinks the game at a higher level than a lot of guys that are playing the game because his pedigree, right? Elijah Dotson is a better athlete. Elijah Dotson is a better athlete. I think Elijah Dotson has higher upside. I said that before the flips. Before Ivan Taylor flipped to Alabama and before Elijah Dotson flipped from Pitt to Michigan. Now, Ivan Taylor might start, he might be better to start. Because what is Elijah right now, Bryce? What, 175 pounds? Like, he is really slight. Like, he's gonna have to gain weight. He's gonna have to get bigger and strong. But man, you watch Elijah. By the time I think by his sophomore year, he's probably 190. Junior year or second year in the program, he's 195, 200, and he already at 175, he already has contact courage. Like, he'll stick his nose in there right now. Watch it. Go to a game. Watch his tape. He sticks his nose in there right now at 175. So watch him when he gets some weight to him and he brings something with it. It's going to be on another level. They got him one. So this is not being revisionist. I'm not saying it just because Michigan flipped him. I was saying this beforehand. I feel bad for Archie. Like, because Archie had him one. He was like, he snuck one out of the D. No, he didn't. Sorry, Archie.
Gotta say, I'm always paying attention to Pitt or Iowa. I mean, another guy who's active on an NFL roster right now is Kayvon Merriweather.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one that Iowa took out of Belleville, who's playing for Tampa Bay right now. I don't think he starts, but he's on the active roster. So it's like, yeah, those schools have always, Iowa's definitely one, and Archie Collins, whether he was at Michigan State or at Pitt, I mean, they've always found a lot of those kind of guys, out of the area that Michigan is sort of overlooked a little bit.
Archie's Michigan State, but I like the dude.
Great coach.
He's a Sparty, but he's a good dude. You could be a Sparty and still be a good dude, and Archie's a good dude. So I feel bad for him because he did a good job recruiting him, scouting and recruiting, and recruited the hell out of this dude. But hey, Michigan did its due diligence, came and got them a guy. You cannot let a dude 15 minutes up the road get out of here. Like, you gotta guard your yard. You can't let these pros. You can't let pros get out of the state. And we be remiss. We can't end this segment without stating the obvious, Bryce. I mean, you're getting the Belleville guy. It can't hurt, right? It can't hurt. It can't hurt.
We've had a few interviews before, so I mean, obviously we got a good rapport. Are you talking about that, Bryce? No, for sure. And I think senior year, you've seen that connection on the offensive side of the ball. He can now kind of, be pitching Michigan more and more to him, especially since he's now officially joining that side. So yeah, I mean, this is a win-win for both sides. And I think the biggest thing when you were talking about the Ivan Taylor, kind of Elijah, Dotson conversation there was, I just feel like it's not as big of a drop-off as some fans are going to take it.
It's not a drop-off.
That's kind of how I look at it. And I know people are going to look at the rankings, but that's kind of my...
Hey.
Well, I look at the rankings in a positive. Allen does not bump a guy up that much unless he really... And the gap at the end of the day between, say, I think Taylor's like 48 or 49 and 110, it's not. That's, people look at that as like, I think that's one area where people take the rankings, don't really understand. That is not that big of a gap at all. at the end of the day, like at all. That's a minimal gap, right? And for our guys, Allen specifically here is the Midwest guy, to be that much higher than the composite, I'm leaning Allen's eval all day long.
Listen,
over the composite.
We are. I love 24/7. I'm 24/7 through and through. I ride for the crew. This is we're family. We are not a monolith. Elijah Dotson is the better athlete. They both are good football players. I think both are going to be really good at the next level, right? That being the better athlete doesn't mean that you're going to be the better football player. There's some developing, right? And hey, maybe Ivan Taylor will be better in the long run. I'm not discounting the possibility that Ivan Taylor will wind up being better. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but the higher upside player here is Elijah Dotson. He is the better athlete of the two. Speed, without question. He is a track guy. The faster guy, the more athletic, the run faster, jump higher, side to side quickness. All of those athletic traits are in the favor of Elijah Dotson here. Now, you got to develop, that's going to be on coaching to bring all of it out of him, and you're going to have to add some weight and grow him. The same way Ryan Walters was able to grow Kirby Joseph into what Kirby Joseph is, into a pro, and then obviously Kirby kept developing. But I think that's a great sort of comparison to see how he took a guy who was a kind of a dual athlete, wide receiver, DB. You take him, get him bigger, teach him hone him at one position, grow him up in that position, and watch him sprout. I see the same kind of upside for Elijah Dotson. So let's see if they're able to do that with him. I think this is a big time pickup. I love it. And it's even better that it's a hometown guy. And I also love that he's a dog. I love that. I love for my DBs to be a guy that brings some attitude, that brings some of that presence. I'm not saying that they don't have, you got some guys that, he's gonna bring you some of that swagger in the defensive backfield. Like you need some of that. Elijah's gonna give you some of that. I like that too. So really good pickup, and we'll see if it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Maybe that'll kick the weekend off right. We'll see. Right? All right, folks. That'll do it for this special bonus edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider.